everyone's been talking about
Okay.
NATO, right? NATO alliances and potentially entangling alliances and this, that, the other. Can you take us back to the beginning of NATO? What is
Yeah.
NATO? When, why did it start?
Yeah, so NATO was founded in the immediate aftermath of World War II, actually, in 1949. It had 12 founding members. It now has 30 members. It was established with the specific purpose of defending the West against aggressors, most notably, of course, at that time, the Soviet Union. And so it was seen as an essential alliance, actually, for standing up to the Russians. So that really is the origin of the NATO alliance. It is also the original sort of transatlantic alliance as well. So, brings together the United States, Canada, with overwhelmingly European allies plus Turkey as well. So NATO is all about defending the West from its adversaries. At that time, of course, primarily the Russians. Today, NATO has a more of an expanded role in terms of, the threats that it faces. And NATO was actively involved, of course, in the military operations in Afghanistan in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. And that was actually the first time when NATO's Article 5 was invoked. Article 5, basically, in essence, is the principle that if one NATO member is attacked, all NATO members must respond and come to the defense of that NATO member. So Article 5 is really at the heart of what NATO is all about. It's a defensive alliance. It's not an offensive alliance, as the Russians claim. It's all about defending the West from the enemies of the free world.
The Russians would claim that NATO expansion is their form of aggression and offensive, right? So when did NATO expansion start? And we've been reading more and more about people throughout this time who have said, ooh, this is maybe not the best idea if you want to arouse Russia. But when did this movement start to expand?
Well, actually, NATO expansion started in the 1950s when countries like Germany, for example, became members of the NATO alliance. The biggest expansion occurred in the immediate aftermath of the Cold War. And so in the early 2000s, around the time of the Bush administration, you saw a very significant expansion when former members of the Soviet bloc, including the Baltic states, Poland, for example, became members of the NATO alliance. And so there have been several periods of expansion for NATO, but certainly the biggest in recent years was in the early 2000s when you had a large number of Eastern and Central European countries who became members of the NATO alliance. And of course, that mightily upset the Russians. But, the Russians do not have any say over who becomes a member of NATO. It's none of their business. And of course, the Baltic states, for example, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, hardly threaten Russia. Russia just uses NATO expansion as an excuse to kind of, do a bit of saber rattling and to launch threats, etc. So in reality, of course, NATO has no, intention to threaten Russia, but NATO will defend itself if the Russians are foolish enough and stupid enough to pick a fight. And certainly the Russians will not succeed in any war against NATO.
Hey, Slater Crusaders, our newest special is about the New World Order. Now, I know that sounds all very conspiratorial, but it's very simple. There was a order of the world that we've been living through for many decades. Things are changing, and from that will come a new world order. But what does that look like? India, China, Russia, the Middle East, and then our role in this new world order. We still got 3 more years of this Biden presidency, unfortunately. We talk about all of that on our newest special about the New World Order. You can watch it now on the First TV app. Download and become a supporter.